During a program of the American broadcast, anchor Peter Jennings told viewers to look forward to next week to see a special broadcast of national significance. He would continue letting viewers know in the next 7 nights, and even referring to it as the most unprecedented announcement in recent history. A week after it was first mentioned, Jennings reminded viewers of the broadcast for one final time, and letting viewers know to keep an eye out for the special broadcast, and referring to it as the greatest gift to the American people. Due to the anticipation building up during the week, 60,000 citizens tuned into the American broadcast to end, and the national broadcast to begin. There were many rumors about what would occur, from the announcement of aliens to the declaration of nuclear war. Speculation was brewing fast. Once the broadcast ended, a 10-second countdown would commence, with the title DEANDEMOCRACY in front of a black background. Some of the viewers were so terrified of the concept of nuclear war that they reportedly experienced nervous breakdowns and ran to the street, referring to DEANDEMOCRACY as the code name of a nuclear holocaust. Yet once the countdown ended, all fears were replaced with tears of joy and cheer from the citizens, something not seen since the end of World War II.
What are we waiting for? Let's bring them back home.
In the seconds after James Dean's announcement, thousands of neighborhoods were celebrating, although other candidates had promised to end the Vietnam War. None had so accurately expressed the same anger that they had felt, which Dean had perfectly expressed in a 15-second broadcast. Due to popular demand, the American broadcast was canceled the next night, instead being replaced by James Dean's presidential announcement. The broadcast was watched by millions of American citizens, and the parties had been continuing through the rest of the week. Due to the repeated assassination attempts on Robert Kennedy, the Democratic Party canceled the presidential debates for the 1968 election. However, that was no issue for Dean, as polls indicated that he was in the lead for 1967 and 68, despite the lower number of appearances and rallies than the other candidates. The strength of the campaign was because of his advertisements that he not only directed, but would produce every Friday evening. The series of programs would be viewed as a TV series, and on to be the highest watched series after the conclusion of Star Trek in 1967. Although the presidential debate was scheduled after the election, President Dean invited opponent Richard Nixon to race cars on the same night. Although reluctant at first, Nixon eventually agreed to race with Dean, reportedly stated after, "To hell with it, I'm voting for you. You already a better president than I'll ever be." This statement, although only a rumor, spread rapidly, which curved Nixon's chance to be president. On the morning of November 1st, 1968, 4 days before the election, anti-Dean groups hijacked radio and television stations and told civilians that they are fed up with President Dean and television are ruining the youth. After the broadcast, the groups cut the power lines in the Middle East, preventing Dean's ads to go to Tennessee. After Dean heard of the incident and, despite the risk of an assassination, went over to the South to help repair the power lines. Dean was supported by a crowd of young people who were happy to see a younger face in the White House. Elderly white conservatives, who were parents of the supporters, remained in their houses and only opened the blinds to take a look at the candidate. Although it wasn't known to Dean at the time, hate groups in the South were perpetuated the idea that he was Satan in disguise and ended his good looks and his love of jazz as signs of the devil.
James Dean is the man.
Elderly white conservatives would be the only people who would not be fazed by the campaign. Yet Dean continued state to state repairing power lines for the people in the amount of 4 days, until the very morning of the election. On January 20th, 1969, James Dean held his inaugural address at the Capital One Raceway. Although presidents in the past had speeches that were around 20 minutes, Dean spoke for less than a minute.
I have a speech. It has the force element that people expect to hear. But that's not fair. No, that's not fair at all. I'm here for all of you, and it's only fair that you yourself speak. My words should be louder than yours, so I've brought many others to speak. They're just people just like you and I. At the same time that many other presidents have spoken by themselves, America will speak. Thank you.
Dean proceeded to introduce many other groups to the microphone, including civil activists and Native American families. Martin Luther King Jr. would come forward to speak in his first appearance since the attempt on his life 9 months prior. President Dean would conclude the inauguration with a bongo performance, and after that would race Richard Nixon on the racetrack. In subsequent generations, those who disagreed with the president would celebrate DEANDEMOCRACY Day and protested by watching Dean's unique take on the address in place of the actual one. In the televised address, President Dean planned to inform Americans about his 90 days in office. However, 6 seconds into the broadcast, the audio cut out and remained absent. Although anti-Dean groups took responsibility and took pride in the hijack, many civilians stated that it benefited the president. The silent broadcast highlighted the president's sincere facial expressions and the lively disposition as opposed to the stiff and sternness of prior administrations. Viewers were proud of seeing a man of his time in the most important role of the country. Ironically, President Dean's popularity grew after the difficulty. The film director Stanley Kubrick went on to call the broadcast the greatest silent film ever made.